Well, I guess as far as the relationship between some of the countries you mentioned and France is concerned, the priority is to basically remind France that the good old days are over with and they're going to come back. There's no issue, I mean, to the extent there's a historical relationship between a large swath of Africa and France on a cultural and linguistic level. The dynamics of bearing on economic captation of some of the resources of those countries is essentially the heart of the matter in as far as this current cooling of relationship between those countries and France. There's nothing fundamentally dividing France and those African countries ultimately as far as cultural exchanges and a shared history. And this is something that will need to be built on in the future, but not under the framework of what France would like to impose. And what Dr. Elias was talking about earlier, in that sense, rings a bell. Is that there's no what should I call it? There's no imperative for Africa to distance itself per se from certain countries on the account that they were once colonial powers. Diplomacy and international relation as such is predicated on interest and interest only.
Sure.
And so, to the extent there is something down the road, once this relationship is cleared up in as far as the predicate and the what should I call it, the perception of each other in this new era is concerned, there's no reason for business and ties to be reinforced down the road. But for the time being, we are going through a process which sees the former colonial masters in France refusing to accept the new reality. And so, on that premise alone, obviously, there's going to be a need to completely pivot and reorient the general outlook in as far as relationship with other countries are concerned. It's a matter of national sovereignty and I would say a survival necessity. It's a divorce, and like in any divorce, it's a complicated period where you have to item per item go through redistribution of the household estate, in a more equitable manner, and you have to decide who's going to have the custody of the kids. But once that process is completed, and time has gone by because time heals, there's no reason for those relationships to not be renewed. One last thing I would like to put forward is also the representation that Africans have of themselves. And Yulia somewhat alluded to it when she mentioned governance and logistics. Yes, of course, you need infrastructure and you need to have a legal security for investors and all this. This is the veneer of the configuration, as it were. But it's also very important that Africans reclaim for themselves the rich history of the continent going back thousands of years, built on imperial and great empires that existed on Africa, and that would put some of those European countries to shame, as it were, if we compare, what was going on the continent back in those days compared to what was going on in Europe. And so it's important not to allow this kind of ideology, this, I hate that term, but I guess it's the closest that comes to mind, this indigenous third world ideology peddled by the Western left as far as African is concerned. This kind of paternalism, you have to get rid of this. And African have to create a new generation of scribes and storytellers, because only through the storytelling may contemporary African reclaim for themselves a sense of who they are, where they come from, and from that point where they're going.